see. My name is Peter. I came from the Slovenian Institute for Adult Education, which is a public institution established in '91, mainly for developing further system of adult education in the country. Firstly, I would like to present some data about our educational system and about our population, which have direct or indirect impact on adult education. Firstly, we have much less population than Slovakia, although the name is quite similar. We have only 2 million, and with a mean age of 42.4, which increased from in the last 8 years for almost 2 years. The share of population beyond 14 is 14.9, which also decreased from in the last 8 years for 1.5%, and the share of population, the most active age, also decreased in that period for almost 3%. And the share of population, of course, 65 plus, increased for 2% in the last 8 years. So we are approximately, as already Michael mentioned, for Iron, we used to be mostly Slovenes, and now we have 5.6% of foreigners. I mean, these are foreign citizens, among which 82% come from the former Yugoslavian republic or states. This picture shows that the inclination of the trends of this data about the populations are, apart from the share of 65 plus are declining, and only the share of 65 plus inclining in the positive way. Some figures about our regular educational system and its features, because I think it is indirectly had impact on the adult education. We have almost completely covered, of course, elementary school, which is obligatory until the age of 15. So we have 9 years of elementary school. The share of youngsters in the age of secondary school involved in the secondary schools, it's over 90%. So it is covering the whole 4 years period. So also for those who are entering the 3 years period are encompassed in this figure. So it's a very high share. And the share of tertiary students for the whole span, 1924, for the whole 6 years period, is 47.4% in 2017. And among these, it is very interesting that the share of men is 39, and the share of female is 56.3% of the whole young girls aged 1924 are enrolled in tertiary education. So it is, of course, inclines some sort of a picture about the educational structure of the population, where you can see that, for example, the whole population 25-64 for female in 2016, 34% of the whole population has attained tertiary education. So, well, here we can have some reflection on Michael's very nice expression, which was highly qualified and poorly educated. Well, it might be that this is also the part of the structure when we can pull out our needs for adult education. What is very much makes us very much concerned are the activity rate if comparison to the educational attainment. I mean, where we are speaking about the reorientation of adult education on the European level, from the general education to the vocational or employability oriented or educational programs or training programs. Here we can see that only 17.6% of low educated women are active in the whole 15 plus population. This is something which all the time I'm testing if I'm right when having that calculation, but it is supposed to be so. So these are these problems, or this is this basin we are pulling out our needs for adult education. So about our adult education, as Alexandra has already mentioned, that I will make some sort of proud of our system in Slovenia, because we really have a quite reasonable established system of adult education. As far as the legal frame is concerned, we have, of course, the Constitution, which guarantees right to elementary school, whenever you are entering the system. And then we have the Organization and Financing Education Act, which comprises also adult education provision, adult education financing, standards, quality assurance, and everything that. And then we have the Special Adult Education Act, which defines providers, defines programs for adults, and supportive activities, and defines the adult education master plan, which is that comprehensive strategic document adopted by the National Assembly, prepared by the government, and it is a long-term document for 7 or 8 years duration, and its very importance is based on the fact that it is adopted by the National Assembly, which means that it guarantees also the financing sources and the financial scope for the whole period. And then, of course, delivered from this action plan, from this master plan, is the annual plan for adult education. And the novelty which was introduced in 2014 when this new document was adopted is that we have in Compans, apart from the Ministry of Education and apart from the Ministry of Labor, also 6 other ministries which are providing some sort of education or training or learning which can be considered as adult education, like Ministry of Health or Agriculture or everything, because everything of that was already pointed out in Michael's speech that, for example, that agriculture has a lot to do with lifelong learning and the learning in the whole life. So the system of provision of adult education programs is very much publicly oriented, and our efforts are oriented towards that it would stay as such. We have a very well organized network of 34 adult education centers, which are called high schools, and they are established by local communities, but financing publicly from the public tenders or from this annual plan for adult education. Then we have 42 units specialized for adult education within the secondary network of secondary schools. And then we have 60 public libraries with their programs also dedicated to adults and the general public. And the funding is organized or directly or by public tenders. And it is reasonably organized. Well, of course, we have a lack of sources, but the system as such is quite reasonably organized. So key challenges for the future in Slovenia for respect to adult education is that of course we have to reach vulnerable groups, because our participation rate is 11.7, but it decreased from 16.2, which we had in 2010. Now it's 11.7. But we are our target set in our national program was 19 up to 2020, and which is completely unfeasible and totally unrealistic. So we would like to make a system of supportive activities offered to vulnerable groups, and it would be provided as a public service. So it would be financed as a fixed staff, which would be fully employed for the provision of supportive activities to vulnerable groups. This is a proposal in the novelty of our Adult Education Act, which is now on the table in the government. And of course, it was already mentioned by Petra, the development of the system of recognized prior learning, and of course to outreach the most vulnerable groups which are still outside of, and of course address properly very poor outcomes. I would like to, if you would have the possibility to have these slides to read them afterwards. As far as the DIMA project is concerned, we have piloted this toolkit with 20 stakeholders, as did all other partners, and it was quite successfully, and it was, I think that all participants have some sort of positive reaction towards the toolkit, and also the positive reaction from the optimal development or optimal usage of the toolkit in the future and the further development. And I think that key lessons learned from that are that the toolkit, the importance of the toolkit is that it shows that the designing some sort of strategies in whatever part of social services are concerned, or even social, not just services, but social life, that you have to involve all stakeholders, and you have to make a very comprehensive action plan with defined responsibilities and defined monitoring spots where you will evaluate the steps that you have achieved upon that level. And for the future, I think and I believe that it has the potential to become an accredited system on the university level, and hopefully Michael will help us to achieve that goal. Thank you.